She was only 17, pregnant, and heartbroken, thrown out by the very man who once called her his precious jewel. From the outside, the Okoye family was a picture of perfection. They lived in a well-fenced, painted duplex with polished floors, trimmed flowers, and a reputation that preceded them across their street. It was the kind of home neighbors pointed at when telling their children, "That is how to raise a proper family." But beneath the tidy curtains and polished veranda was a home ruled by fear and silence. Mr. Kenneth Okoye was the head of the house, a retired lieutenant colonel in the army. His voice alone could shake a grown man. His presence alone could silence a room. He had deep scars on his shoulder from his time in service, and his mind had no space for weakness. Discipline was not a suggestion in his house, it was law. Rules were spoken once, and consequences were often louder than words. Even his wife walked on eggshells around him. He wore his military past like a second skin. Everything had its place. Shoes by the door, no noise after 8 p.m., meals by 6 p.m. sharp, and no room for mistakes, especially from his children. Kenneth believed that failure in a child was failure in the father, and he would rather cut off an arm than carry shame with his name. His wife, Gloria Okoye, was in her early 50s, soft-spoken, and deeply religious. She had not always been timid. As a young girl, she had a sharp mind and a love for teaching. But 27 years of marriage to Kenneth had taught her how to be silent. She prayed a lot. She was the kind of mother who prayed over her children's food, clothes, beds, and shoes. She fasted on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But most of all, she prayed for her husband's heart to soften. It never did. They had 3 children. Edwin, the first son, was 28 and married to a girl Kenneth never approved of. She was from a neighboring tribe and not from their village. Kenneth did not attend the wedding and barely spoke to Edwin anymore. Edwin relocated to Canada with his wife shortly after and stayed away from family matters. It was better for his sanity. Their second child was Dora, 24 years old, calm, respectful, and obedient. She was the kind of daughter every church elder praised. Dora had just completed her NYSC and was waiting for a job. She wanted to become a nurse and had even applied to several hospitals. Her presence in the house was like soft air, gentle, quiet, and easily ignored. Then came Victor, their last-born. He was 19, taller than everyone in the house, and in his first year at the university. He was outspoken, unafraid to challenge things, and always received the longest punishments for his sharp tongue. Kenneth once told him, "You talk like a stranger in this house. You'll learn the hard way." Still, they were a family. They prayed together on Sunday mornings. They smiled at guests. They took pictures during Christmas. But behind those framed photographs and quiet dinners was a home built on fear, not love. It began one Friday afternoon. Dora was in the sitting room, folding clothes. Her stomach was no longer flat. Her dress, though loose, could not hide the roundness that had grown in the last few weeks. She sat carefully, pressing her hand gently on her belly. She was 4 months pregnant. She had told no one, not even her siblings. Only her mother knew. It had happened during her NYSC. His name was Ernest. They had met in camp. He was charming, brilliant, and persuasive. He loved books, had a smooth voice, and told her she was too intelligent to be ordinary. He would wait for her after morning drills, walk her to the hostel, and tell her he wanted to marry her. She believed him. They had been careless once. When she missed her period, she waited, hoping it was a mistake. But as the days passed, her fear grew. She called Ernest. At first, he acted surprised, then concerned, then distant. Finally, his number stopped going through. Just like that, he vanished. Dora cried for days. Her mother noticed her withdrawal and one evening found the pregnancy test strip in the dustbin. There were no loud words between them, only tears. "Why, Dora?" Gloria had asked in a shaky voice. "I didn't plan it, Mama. I swear I didn't." Her mother wept bitterly and begged her not to tell her father. "He won't understand." "We'll find a way," she said. But it was only a matter of time before Kenneth noticed. That Saturday evening, Dora was walking past the dining room when Kenneth called her. His voice was low and heavy. "Come here." She turned slowly. "Stand up straight." She obeyed. He stared at her belly for a long time. Then he looked her in the eyes. "You're pregnant." It wasn't a question. Dora said nothing. Her knees trembled. "Answer me." Tears filled her eyes. Her lips quivered. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. There was silence. Gloria rushed out from the kitchen. "Please let us talk." "Talk." Kenneth turned to her. "She's a disgrace, a failure. You let her bring shame to my name in this house." He turned to Dora again. "Pack your things. You are no longer my daughter. Leave my house before midnight." Gloria fell to her knees. "Please, she's our child." "I don't have a child who gets pregnant like a street girl. Get out of my sight." Victor ran downstairs after hearing the shouting. He saw his sister shaking, his mother on the floor, and his father pacing with rage. He tried to speak, but his father raised his hand. "Say one word, Victor, and you'll follow her." Dora packed her things in silence. Her room, once filled with books and memories, now held nothing but tears. She took only a small bag, 2 dresses, 1 wrapper, a Bible, and a few toiletries. By 11:45 p.m., she stood at the gate. Her face was wet with tears. Her heart was heavy. No one walked her out. No one followed her. She turned and took one last look at the house she had called home for 24 years. And then she walked away, alone, pregnant, and disowned. The sky was dark. The night Dora walked out of her father's house. There were no stars, no breeze, no light in the streets, just stillness, as though the world itself refused to witness her shame. She walked slowly at first, unsure of where to go. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her small travel bag bounced against her hip, and her slippers scraped the concrete with each drag of her foot. She didn't cry anymore. She had no tears left. All her life, she had known that her father was a hard man, but she never imagined he would cast her out like garbage. Not even a word of pity, not even the smallest space to explain herself. In that moment, Dora realized what it truly meant to be alone. She passed the junction where the neighborhood security men usually stood. That night, no one was there. She kept walking until her legs grew too tired to move. By now, it was past midnight. Then she remembered Mama Chinyu. Mama Chinyu was an old woman who used to rent out rooms to students during Dora's university days. She had once mended Dora's blouse for free when it tore in the market. Dora didn't know her well, but she remembered her kindness. She turned around and made her way to the old, uncompleted building where Mama Chinyu lived. It was a low bungalow with a zinc roof and half-finished walls, and it smelled of dust and old fabric. The house had no proper door, just a wooden plank and an iron bolt. Dora knocked gently, heart racing. It took a while, but a dim light came on, and the door creaked open. There she stood, Mama Chinyu in a faded nightgown and a wrapper tied across her chest. "Dora," she asked, blinking in confusion, "what are you doing here by this time of the night?" Dora lowered her head. "Please, I have nowhere to go." The old woman didn't ask questions. She stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in." Inside, the house was warm but dusty. Rolls of cloth sat on chairs. An old sewing machine sat beside the window. There were no tiles on the floor, only faded cement and a worn-out mat in one corner. You're pregnant, Mama Chinyu said after a moment of silence. Dora nodded. Yes, Ma. The old woman sighed. You can stay here, but you'll have to help me in the shop. I will, Dora whispered. That night, Dora slept on the mat beside the sewing machine. It was cold, and the cement floor hurt her back, but it was safer than the streets. She curled herself into a tight ball and placed her palm over her belly. I'm sorry, she whispered to the child inside her. I'll do my best. I promise. The days that followed were slow and heavy. Dora woke by 5 a.m. each morning to sweep the shop. She folded wrappers, dusted the sewing machine, and helped customers carry their clothes. Sometimes she sat outside the shop and patched torn school uniforms for free just to keep her mind busy. Mama Chinyu taught her how to stitch, how to thread the needle, and how to measure fabric. In exchange, Dora washed her clothes, cooked her meals, and ran errands. They didn't talk much about why Dora had left home, but one afternoon, Mama Chinyu looked at her and said, I don't know what happened to your people, but you're not the first girl to be left alone in this world. Just don't let your pain turn you bitter. Bitterness is a heavy luggage. It will break your back before you reach your destination. Dora nodded, but said nothing. She wasn't bitter yet, just scared. Scared of childbirth, scared of tomorrow, scared that the child inside her would come and meet a mother with nothing to offer. Her mother never came to look for her. Her father never asked where she went. Her phone had been seized the night she was sent out. Her number was no longer reachable. It was as if she had disappeared completely. By the time she was 7 months gone, Dora could barely bend. Her back ached, and her legs were always swollen. She stopped helping in the shop. Instead, she sat on a small stool and assisted from there, cutting threads, sorting fabric, folding clothes. One evening, she saw someone familiar through the dusty shop window. It was Victor, her younger brother. He stood outside for a long time, staring at the faded signboard of the shop, unsure if he should enter. Then Dora stepped out. Victor, he turned quickly and rushed to her. Her face had grown thinner, and her skin was darker. She looked like someone who had been through a lot more than just pregnancy. He hugged her. Why didn't you tell me where you went? She leaned on him gently. I didn't want you to get into trouble. He exhaled slowly. Daddy told us not to mention your name again. He told Mummy to stop praying for you, but she still prays for you every night. They sat outside on the wooden bench. He made her throw away all your pictures. Victor said. Dora blinked. But I kept this. He brought out a small laminated photo of her wearing her NYSC uniform, standing tall and proud with her certificate. Dora stared at it for a long time, then looked away. I'm sorry I didn't come earlier, Victor said. I just didn't know where to look. She nodded. It's okay. I'm fine now. At least I'm not on the streets. He looked around. This place isn't fine, Dora. She smiled weakly. It's better than the cold I felt that night I left home. Victor looked down. If you need anything, diapers, clothes for the baby, just let me know. I don't want to get you into trouble with Daddy. I don't care, he said. They talked until it got dark. He left reluctantly, promising to come again. By the 9th month, Dora was weak. She could barely walk. She hadn't been to any hospital since the pregnancy started. No antenatal, no scan, nothing. All she had were prayers and hope. One morning, as she tried to sweep the corridor, her back gave out. She sat on the floor, gripping her waist. Mama Chinyu rushed out. Lie down, she said. I think the baby is coming. Dora cried. Water trickled down her legs. Neighbors gathered. A taxi was called. Dora was rushed to the local maternity center, an old, overcrowded building with peeling walls and 2 tired nurses on duty. She went through 12 hours of pain. No mother by her side, no husband, no father, just her God, and the sounds of other women screaming in nearby rooms. She gripped the iron bar on the hospital bed, screamed through her teeth, and begged the child to come quickly. And finally, at 3:02 p.m., Dora gave birth to a baby boy. He had full black hair, brown eyes, and a strong wail. Dora stared at him for a long time. He looked just like Ernest, the same man who had promised her the world and disappeared when she needed him most. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She held him close and kissed his forehead. "You're mine. You're all I have." She named him Emmanuel, God with us, because only God had been with her through it all. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. Mama Chinyu died in her sleep. The shock was too much for Dora. Now, she was not only a new mother, but also alone once again. The small shop was closed. The house was empty. No one else to help her. She moved into the back room with her baby, surviving on boiled rice and sachet water. She tried not to cry. She tried to be strong. But every night, she would sit under the old mango tree behind the house, hold her baby close, and pray silently. Not for help, not for Ernest, not even for her parents, just for strength, to keep going, to survive, to live, not just for herself, but for the child who knew nothing of the pain that brought him into the world. After Mama Chinyu's sudden death, the silence in the small compound grew louder than the cries of Dora's newborn baby. The woman who had given her shelter, who had stood like a pillar in her storm, was now gone, and she didn't even get to say goodbye. There was no funeral, no long mourning period. Just two of the old woman's cousins who came, carried her body to the village, and locked up the shop. Everything inside, sewing machine, cloth, thread, and chairs, was taken away. Dora was not family. She had no rights. They didn't ask how she would survive. They didn't care that she had just given birth. She was left with nothing but her baby, a wrapper, and a leaking roof over her head. She tried not to cry that night, but when the candle burned out and the darkness swallowed the room, she laid beside her child and wept. "I don't know how to do this," she said aloud, "but I won't give up." The next day, Dora tied Emmanuel to her back and went from one nearby compound to the next, asking if anyone needed help with laundry or house cleaning. She was turned down by some, but a few elderly women allowed her to wash clothes for a small amount. That was how it started, one bucket at a time, one stain at a time. Her hands became rough from detergent, her back ached from bending, and her feet cracked from constant walking. Still, she showed up early every morning, her child tied firmly to her back, silent, humble, and grateful for anything at all. Some of the women began to talk about her. "That's the girl whose father threw her out. She was such a good girl. Look at her now. She brought shame to her family." Dora heard it all, every word, but she kept her head low and said nothing. She focused on Emmanuel, who had become her reason to breathe. She bathed him in a plastic bowl, used torn wrappers as diapers, and sang lullabies under her breath when he cried at night. Her body ached constantly. Her mind never rested, but her child, her Emmanuel, was healthy, growing, and strong. He smiled a lot, and that smile kept her alive. 3 months later, Victor returned. He came during a hot afternoon, carrying a black nylon bag filled with baby food, wipes, and clothes. Dora was surprised to see him. She opened the door and smiled faintly. "You remembered us." "I never forgot," he said, stepping inside. "I've been saving my allowance just to buy these things." Dora sat on the edge of the old wooden bed, feeding Emmanuel. Her eyes filled with tears. "You shouldn't have," she said. "You're my sister. What's the point of family if we only stand by each other when things are good?" She looked at him long and hard. He had grown so much in the past few months. His voice was deeper. His face was more serious. Thank you, Victor. He reached for Emmanuel and carried him gently. He's so full of life, he said, smiling. Just like you. Dora laughed softly. No, he's not like me. I cry too much. Victor looked around. The room was nearly empty. No chair, no fan, no stove. Just a mat, a water bucket, a bag of baby clothes, and a bowl of pap sitting on the floor. Is this how you've been living? He asked. She nodded. He sat quietly for a while. Mummy sends her prayers. Every night. She kneels and cries. She could have come. She wants to, he replied. But she's scared. Of what? Of him. Victor didn't answer. He knew the answer. Dora knew it too. They sat in silence. Then he placed an envelope in her hand. What's this? Some money. I did some extra work on campus, typing assignments, charging phones. It's not much. Just buy something for yourself. She held the envelope tightly and whispered, Thank you. That evening, Victor walked her to the roadside and stopped a tailor who had her sewing machine under a tree. My sister used to work in a shop, he said. Can she help you with anything? The woman was quiet for a moment. I can't pay her much, she said. She doesn't mind, he replied quickly. The tailor turned to Dora. Can you sew? Dora hesitated. A little. Come tomorrow. Let's see what you can do. That was how Dora found a way back into tailoring. She reported to the woman every morning by 7:30 a.m., sweeping the small shop, cutting cloth, picking pins, and hemming gowns. The pay was small, but at least she could afford soap, pap, and firewood. She tied Emmanuel to her back while working, humming as she sewed. Every stitch felt like a piece of her life coming back together. After a few weeks, the tailor allowed her to start using one of the old machines to patch clothes for students in the area. The money was small, but she saved every coin. One day, she bought a second-hand electric fan. Another week, a small mattress. Slowly, her room began to look like a home. Not because it was fancy, but because it carried the weight of her resilience. She even made 2 tiny pillows for Emmanuel, stitching his name into the corners with blue thread. Months passed. Her hands became steadier. Her sewing improved. People in the area began to bring their clothes to her directly. That girl under the mango tree is very neat. They'd say, she doesn't talk too much, just does her work. One woman paid her to sew school uniforms for her 3 children. Another brought a wedding gown to adjust. Dora charged fairly, delivered on time, and never argued. One evening, she was walking home when a young girl stopped her. Auntie Dora, can you teach me how to sew? She looked down at the girl, probably 14. Hungry eyes, worn-out slippers. Come tomorrow, Dora said gently, but bring your own thread. The girl smiled. Dora turned to walk home, her son sleeping quietly on her back. She passed the house she once called home. It was far now, emotionally not in distance. She didn't look back. There was nothing there for her anymore. One quiet Sunday morning, she was sitting outside her room, bathing Emmanuel, when Victor appeared again. This time, he looked nervous. She frowned. What is it? He cleared his throat. Daddy wants to see you. Dora blinked. Why? I don't know, he said. He just told me to bring you. Dora didn't speak. Her heart beat faster. Tell him I said thank you, but I'm fine where I am. Victor sighed. Just think about it. That's all I'm saying. He left. She stared at Emmanuel, water dripping down his tiny forehead. What do you think, baby? She said. He laughed, splashing the water. She smiled. No need. We're okay. That night, she lit a small candle, tied her son to her chest, and sat under the mango tree. She looked up at the stars and whispered, God, I didn't ask for this life, but I'm grateful we're still here. Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness this time, but from something deeper. Survival, not by miracles, not by donations, but by her own hands, her own sweat, her own quiet fight. Months passed like a slow but determined river, carrying Dora and her little Emmanuel along its winding course. Each day, she rose before the sun, quietly feeding her son before settling at the small wooden table where her sewing machine sat. Her first stitches were clumsy, but with every garment she mended, her hands grew surer, her eyes sharper, and her heart bolder. She no longer felt like the abandoned girl people once pitied. She was becoming something more. After completing her training, Dora invested in better fabrics and designs. She started experimenting, creating dresses from scratch, adding her unique touch with embroidery and bold patterns. One afternoon, fate knocked gently on her door in the form of a woman who walked into her shop carrying a bag of silk. The woman was an influencer, stylish, well followed, and always looking for fresh talent. Dora worked day and night on that gown, every stitch holding her determination and pride. When the woman wore it and posted the pictures online, tagging Dora's page, her life shifted in an instant. Orders poured in. Messages flooded her phone. Women from different cities, wives of governors, even Nigerians living abroad, all requesting her designs. The little shop that once seemed too big for her now couldn't contain the piles of fabric waiting to be transformed. Dora hired 2 apprentices, then 4. She opened a bigger studio, its walls lined with her creations, each piece a silent testimony of her resilience. Within 2 years, Dora's name was everywhere. She was interviewed by fashion blogs, invited to exclusive events, and later featured in Times Magazine as one of Africa's most promising young designers. She had never imagined her face would grace the covers of glossy magazines, yet here she was, proof that storms do not sink the determined. It was during this peak of success that her father, Mr. Kenneth Okoye, called. His voice was quieter than she remembered, heavy with regret. He told her how wrong he had been, how deeply he had hurt her, and asked if she could ever forgive him. The stern, unyielding man who once ordered her out of his house now humbled himself before his daughter. Dora forgave him, not because she had forgotten, but because she had learned that forgiveness frees the one who gives it. Meanwhile, life had not been kind to Ernest, the man who abandoned her. Married for 5 years, his wife had suffered 9 miscarriages. The absence of children weighed heavily on him, and guilt for what he had done to Dora gnawed at his heart. Through her management, he requested to see her. Dora declined several times, but eventually she agreed. When they met, Ernest could barely lift his eyes. He apologized for everything, for his cowardice, his absence, his betrayal. Dora listened silently, then told him she had long moved on. She forgave him, not out of pity, but because her heart no longer carried the burden of his actions. Months later, life surprised her again. At a charity gala where she was invited to showcase her work, Dora met Michael Adewale, a celebrated actor known for his humility despite his fame. They spoke about life, about pain, about rising above betrayal. One conversation became 2, then many more. In Michael, Dora found not only love but a partner who cherished both her and Emmanuel as his own. Their wedding was a blend of elegance and joy. Emmanuel walking proudly down the aisle beside his mother, and Mr. Okoye standing beside Dora, tears glistening in his eyes. She had gone from the girl thrown out in shame to a woman celebrated in glory. Dora's story became an inspiration, proof that a single moment of rejection does not define a lifetime, and that with resilience, grace, and faith, the same ground you were thrown on can become the stage where you shine the brightest.